everyone. My name is Holden Hardman. Thank you so much for joining me again for another video. My wife and I just recently finished watching all of Avatar: The Last Airbender for the first time, and it was a ride. The ending in particular really made the whole journey worth it. I've been thinking about this since the end of book 2, and I've just really been holding it in when it comes to Avatar, but now, you know what, I think I just want to talk about it. I want to take a look at Uncle Iroh and Zuko specifically, and a few of the moments from the series that really impacted me as a Christian. One of the reasons I like Uncle Iroh a lot is because I kind of hope that I'm the way he is when I'm older. His attitude and relationship to Zuko is much closer to that of a father than that of an uncle. It's how I think the baseline typical Christian attitude should be. I never saw an interaction where anyone ever felt belittled by Iroh. I can't remember an episode where Iroh ever put anyone down. I do think that some people have a misconception that Christians are pacifist. They sort of turn the other cheek, doormat style people. But I think Iroh displays how those verses are lived out, and more importantly, why that's important. That reaction of turn the other cheek is important. We see it in Zuko's behavior towards Iroh several times in the series. There are times when Zuko is mean, he's rude, he's condescending, and even spiteful towards Iroh, but Iroh never retaliates. He turns the other cheek. Why? Is Uncle Iroh weak or incapable? No, but it's because he loves Zuko. He's patient with him. He looks after Zuko's well-being despite how Zuko treats him. There are moments, however, where Uncle Iroh intervenes, sometimes aggressively, with force. And really, it's one of my biggest complaints against American Christianity, is because they all seem so soft. So many Christians are stopped dead in their tracks if someone says a bad word. The Christians of old were getting imprisoned, mauled by lions, stoned to death, hanged, burned alive, etc. But Marianne Kelly on Facebook is getting real upset that teachers aren't allowed to lead their classes in prayer. We gotta be tougher Christians. You gotta be able to take some hits. Jesus was out there getting beaten beyond recognition, nailed to some wood, and had his body naked publicly displayed for humiliation. But you can't handle an atheist calling God Sky Daddy online. When I worked at the psych hospital, we used to have a saying: you need to have thick skin, but a soft heart. Oftentimes, the people who need love the most deserve it the least. We learn, of course, of Iroh's son that he lost, power and authority that were essentially taken from him, and yet the only moment we ever truly see him bothered and broken is when Zuko visits his cell in Book 3 and basically berates him.
You brought this on yourself, you know. You have no right to judge me, Uncle. You're not going to say anything? You're crazy, and if you weren't in jail, you'd be sleeping in a gutter.
It's one of the only times that we see him cry, not because Iroh is weak, but because Iroh loves Zuko as his son and sees him willingly choose a path of destruction. And yet, even in Iroh's greatest moment of defeat, he still builds himself up. He quiets himself. He meditates or secludes himself in prayer, and he moves forward. Zuko, on the other hand, is one of the most interesting characters I've ever seen. For me, the moment that really made my jaw drop was in Book 2, where Zuko was clearly having an internal battle between good and evil, and in the end, he chose evil. I was given every indication that he was going to be joining Team Avatar, from his attitude, his experiences in finding peace in simplicity that he was having with Iroh, to his whole conversation with his his new friend Katara. So his choice to join Azula and try and fulfill his original goal of restoring honor with his father was one of the best misdirects I've ever seen from a storytelling perspective. And I both love it and I hate it. Zuko, I think, represents a person that is really struggling with faith. When we meet him, his motivations are clear, and they're not necessarily wrong. He wants to restore his honor and earn his father's favor again. Zuko is desperate for it. It's a son's burden to want favor from their father. Zuko's relationship with his father is the key ingredient into why he is the way that he is. Our relationships with our parents directly influence our perspective of God, at least initially. If you had a father that was always angry or yelled or just generally disinterested in you, well, then your perspective of God is that he's wrathful, angry, and uninvolved. Likewise, if you have a father that is loving, compassionate, and present, you're likely to view God that way. So for those of us, like Zuko, who had parents that were impossible to please, made you feel like you're a failure, made you feel like you were never good enough, what is your perspective of God? God is referred to as a heavenly Father. So if your earthly father, your earthly parents, don't want anything to do with you, don't even like you, then why on earth would another father like you? This is one of the reasons God gives clear expectations of parents, because parents are the initial representatives of God. Fathers, do not embitter your children or they will become discouraged. Fathers, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in training and instruction of the Lord. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. Start children off the way they should go, and when they are old, they will not turn from it. It seems obvious to me that Zuko's father failed him. I know it's not popular to say nowadays, but the truth is that kids need their dads. They need dads to show them that they love them. Zuko needed his father, but his father committed a cardinal sin. The sin of conditional love, a love that must be earned. This is the opposite kind of love that Christ offers and that Christ embodies, a love freely given, unconditional love. Iroh embodies this kind of love beautifully, a love that a father should be giving to Zuko. Iroh is always by his side, encouraging him. As a father figure, he doesn't always approve of the things that his would-be son does, but he's always there to try to help Zuko out, and when he can, bail him out of his mistakes. It's the reason Zuko's betrayal in Book 2 was so impactful, because it seemed as though Zuko realized that he had achieved what he had been trying to gain the whole time, which was unconditional love. He had a father figure that truly loved him, and he was living out a life that he seemed to enjoy.
Congratulations, Uncle.
I'm very thankful.
You deserve it.
That something as simple as making tea and sweeping the floors of a shop could make someone truly happy.
Have you ever thought that I want more from life than a nice apartment and a job serving tea?
I especially love this because it is so contrary to the secular wisdom of love. It's all about you, man. Looking out for number one. It's about the Bugattis, my guy. It's all about the hoes. It's about the zeros in your bank account. That's what's gonna make you happy. That's what's going to get you some respect. That's what the old Christians call the worldly view. Iroh is living out the Christian worldview, and he's gifting that to Zuko. Look through heaven's eyes, man. A lake of gold in the desert sand. It's less than a cool, fresh spring. How can you measure the worth of a man? In wealth, in strength, or size? In how much he gained, or how much he gave? Prince of Egypt, go watch it. And for a brief moment, Zuko was loving it. It was the first time in the whole series that we see him smile, content, and truly thankful for what he has. The temptation, though, in Book 2 was too great for Zuko. He saw a chance, an opening, a temptation to get what he originally wanted, and man, he took it. As with what usually happens when we fall into temptation, the payoff is poisoned. Even under the impression that the Avatar was dead at the hands of Zuko, his father still never truly accepted him. His sister used that lie to take advantage of him, and he ultimately betrayed the only man who ever truly, sincerely loved him.
I admit it. I have everything I always wanted, but it's not at all how I thought it would be. Forget it. I'll solve this myself. Waste away in here for all I care.
The prodigal son is a parable that Jesus tells, and it has a few layers to it. A lot of people might be good at one aspect, but sort of struggle in the other. For example, most people look at the parable of the prodigal son as a son who leaves his father under selfish intent, repents of that, and then is able to rejoin his father, who accepts him and welcomes him back with open arms. Aw, how sweet. But what sometimes gets left out of the prodigal son is that the prodigal son had a brother who resented his return, especially because he had been doing everything right the whole time. If you're unfamiliar, I'll give you the Cliff Notes version, the Gospel According to Holden version. I am just joking, Baptist. I really need you guys to develop a sense of humor. A son asks his father for his inheritance, because my boy's dad was rolling in some mad stacks. He had like servants and stuff, so you know my boy's inheritance was pushing like 7 figs. So the father gives his son the inheritance, the boy takes it and he splits. Sorry, Pops, thanks for the Benjis, I'm outie 5,000. The kid bails, he takes all the money, and then he starts blowing it off like a weeb. He's spending money on all the fastest camels, on all the best looking hookers. He's walking into World of Beer like, drinks on me like some kind of moron. Well, my guy, Obs, is a straight up idiot, and he blows all his money. And he's feeling stupid because he can't go back home and look at his dad and be like, sorry, I spent it all. So he starts begging for low-wage jobs. He lands a job on a farm taking care of some pigs. And at one point, my guy is so broke and hungry, he goes up to the pig feed, straight up palms that stuff and is like, desperate times, and starts chomping down. My guy is low and he's like, you know what? My dad's servants straight up get treated better than this. So he hatches a plan. He's like, look, maybe I can go back to my dad and get a job as one of his servants, because you know what? F these pigs. So he decides to go back home and head towards his dad, and he's prepping himself, thinking of what he's gonna say, and he's like, all right, Dad, I am so sorry for being a straight up idiot, but if you're hiring, I'll submit an appy. So my boy is walking home down the highway, and the dad's outside, and he sees him walking out in the distance, and the dad goes running towards his son. The legend doesn't even wait for his kid to get to the driveway. My man just straight up sprints towards his kid. And when he catches up to him, he just bear hugs him and starts kissing him all platonically. And the son is like, Dad, I messed up so bad. Like, I screwed over God. I screwed over you. I legit don't even deserve to be called your kid anymore. He's like, man, I'll hop on ZipRecruiter right now if you just give me a chance. But the dad, he doesn't even give a damn. He's like, hey, get my boy the finest robes we got. Go get me some jewelry for my kid. See if we got any Air Jordans and get them on his feet right now. And Betsy, preheat the oven to 450 because we about to have a feast up in here. The father was so happy his kid returned that they partied all night long. And he was like, thank goodness my son was lost, but now he is found. And the brother's over there jealous watching this like, what the heck? No one ever threw a party for me. And I never even left. I did what I was supposed to do. I never blew my inheritance like my idiot brother. Favoritism at its finest. I'm gonna go complain on Reddit. And the dad's like, look, bud, I need you to be happy that your brother's home, okay? And the brother's like, bet. So that's the prodigal son. Iroh gave Zuko unconditional love, acceptance, and protection. And in exchange, Zuko betrays him and directly results in his imprisonment. In prison, one of the hardest scenes to watch is when Zuko visits him and basically starts yelling at him, telling him that it's his own fault that he landed himself in prison. Iroh says nothing, but we see him shed a tear. Not because he's in prison, but because his heart is so broken. His essential son is going down a path of self-destruction. As time goes on, Zuko does have a change of heart. Essentially, Zuko has a conversion, if you will, as many late-stage Christians experience, meaning Christians that didn't grow up in the church but converted to Christianity later on in their lives. What they can attest to is that you kind of have to unlearn a few things.
You must unlearn what you have learned.
For Zuko, it's his motivation for firebending. I mean, this is something that is so core to his personality and how he perceives the world. He relied so heavily on his anger and his rage to fuel his fire. And in his experience, it had always proved to be powerful. His experience mirrored his view of fire as a source of destruction, since that's the way he was taught. When he learned to view fire not as a source of destruction, but closer to that of the greatest source of fire of all, the sun, which is a source of life and energy, his power grew even greater. Fire can also give life, not just destroy it. He always wanted love. Love from his father, love from his nation, and he believed that gaining honor in the perspective of his father was the way to achieve that. His motivation is understandable and relatable. We all want to be loved. But Zuko learns that honor comes from doing the right thing, and he therefore gains love from his new group of friends. The full circle comes when Zuko sees Iroh again. It's important, I think, to understand Zuko's perspective of asking forgiveness leading up to this point, because I think it shows the bravery and even attempting to ask forgiveness given what Zuko had done.
You do have a choice. Forgiveness.
That's the same as doing nothing.
In Zuko's experience, he had asked his father once for forgiveness, and the result, the consequence, was him being banished and his face being burned.
I'm sorry I spoke out of turn.
You will fight for your honor,
I am your loyal son.
and suffering will be your teacher.
He asked Team Avatar for forgiveness, and while it's understandable of their suspicions, it took a lot of time to gain their trust, especially after being outright told to get lost. We don't accept your apology. We don't want anything to do with you. His experience, like the experience of many people, is that asking for forgiveness is a sign of weakness. In the show, this would be the third time that I can recall that Zuko would even attempt to ask forgiveness from a major character. Contrary to Zuko's entire worldview leading up to this point, he must humble himself and, most frightening of all, make himself emotionally vulnerable. I think Zuko was, at some level, probably right there at the level of expecting Iroh to not forgive him. I mean, how could he?
My uncle hates me, I know it. He loved me and supported me in every way he could, and I still turned against him. How can I even face him?
You're sorry for what you did, right?
More sorry than I've been about anything in my entire life.
Then he'll forgive you. He will.
Of all the sins Zuko committed in the show, his transgression against Iroh was probably the most significant.
Uncle, I know you must have mixed feelings about seeing me, but I want you to know, I am so sorry, Uncle. I am so sorry and ashamed of what I did. I don't know how I can ever make it up to you, but
But before Zuko can even finish his apology, Iroh quickly grabs him over, brings him in, and hugs him with tears streaming down his face. I'm getting goosebumps literally just rethinking about that scene. He loves Zuko. Selflessly, sacrificially loves Zuko. And that moment, probably even more than the final showdown, probably held the most emotional impact of the whole series. The prodigal son had returned.
I was never angry with you. I was sad because I was afraid you lost your way.
I did lose my way.
But you found it again.
And the paradox of God, of the many, is that after finally letting go of selfish desires, the self-preservation, the anger, the resentment, finally becoming humble, becoming emotionally and spiritually vulnerable, he gained even more than what he originally wanted. He became Fire Lord and would have not only his own nation respect and honor him, but every nation in the world.
I promised my uncle that I would restore the honor of the Fire Nation, and I will. 100 years of fighting has left the world scarred and divided. We can get it back on the right path and begin a new era of love and peace.
The story of Zuko is the story of redemption, which is a key tenet in all of Christianity. We believe that we all struggle like Zuko and stumble, sometimes severely, in our pursuit of what we think will fulfill us. If I only had this, if I only had that, then I would be happy. When in reality, Christ is there and is more than capable of fulfilling your life. That if you learn to be content and thankful in all things, like sweeping the floors of a tea shop, God will equip you to be capable of leading nations. That's it for this time, guys. Leave me a comment down below. Like this video if you enjoyed it. Like it even if you didn't enjoy it, because I asked nicely. Subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, and may God be with you, my friends. Take care.